Hi everyone. I want to do something a little bit different. I want to share a series of some videos about establishing a practice, a morning practice, a spiritual practice really, versus just always yoga and that kind of thing. During this time, it's an interesting opportunity for us to really kind of root in and investigate the things we hold to be true, the belief systems we have, the old stories, the old tapes that we play in our head. We're in this place of where it's an interesting time of where we were in quarantine for a long time, and now we are kind of coming back out into the world to some degree. There's still this feeling that we need to close ourselves off, protect ourselves, that kind of thing. But I think that it's also a good time to look at the fears that you hold, to look at old belief systems, maybe belief systems that you grew up with that don't serve you anymore. I grew up as a Southern Baptist, and with all the hellfire and brimstone that came with that. And then I shucked all of that aside for a long time, and I went like every woo-woo, new agey route I could find. It's only been in the last 10, 15 years probably that I've settled into a practice that is rooted in Buddhism, but I also study Course in Miracles, and I've recently began reading the Bible again on my own terms versus what was instilled to me as a child. So I want to share with you in these videos each day over the next 5 days the components of my practice. And maybe it serves you, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you pick the parts that you like and you shuck aside the rest of it. I think that's a good plan for really anything. So today I want to talk to you about prayer. And my relationship with prayer has definitely changed over the years. As a little gay boy growing up, my prayer every morning was for it to rain before gym. And it never did. So I would always pray for something. I'd pray for, better grades. I'd pray to not be fat, to not be gay. Like I'd pray for things and I wouldn't get them. And so then, I would have these existential doubts of faith, like as a 9-year-old. But over the last several years, I would say, I've become more of a practitioner of affirmative prayer. It's basically... this is a tricky part because I think, like I said, you maybe don't believe what you did when you grew up, or maybe you didn't grow up with that. And so for me, when I get up in the morning, the act of prayer is to disengage my ego, to surrender to a power greater than me that I believe exists. I know that's not, everyone's belief system, and you're certainly welcome to have that. But I pray to set aside everything that I think that I know, because I also know that there's a lot I don't know. And so I surrender it up to that. So I want to share a few things with you in regards to prayer. A lot of times it's this idea that I have a lot of things saved on my phone. It's this idea that we don't have the right words, right? But I don't think you really need the words. I think the intention, the thought, those are just automatically transcribed. But if you want to go through a ceremony of prayer, I'm going to share with you a few, and then I'll also go into what I do every morning. There are a few prayers that are out there that are really just very short and succinct. There's the prayer of protection that I believe is from the Unity Church tradition. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is. And if God doesn't, make you, that's a term that makes you uncomfortable. Universe, divine energy, Pete. There's the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So those are two prayers that I tend to kind of insert into my prayer format. And then one of my favorites, this is a little bit of a variation of the prayer of St. Francis. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is falsehood, let me bring truth. Where there is pain, let me bring comfort. Where there is silence, let me sing praise. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is blindness, let me bring sight. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. And with these words I speak, grant that I may not so seek to be heard, but to hear, to be consoled, but to console, not to be seen, but to see, to be loved, but to love. For when we give love, we will receive. When we forgive, we'll find reprieve. For it is in dying we'll be released. Make me an instrument of peace. I love that prayer. There's many variations of it, by the way. The prayer I started doing, 5 or 6 years ago, is a form of affirmative prayer called the God's Prayer, G-O-D-S. The G stands for gratitude. So I try to start every prayer with gratitude, thanking God, the universe, that I'm waking up another day, that I have a house to sleep in, that I have beings in the house that love me. The O is for offering up the things that maybe I'm having issue with. And from the Course in Miracles perspective, everything comes from a place of love or fear. So for me, I'm offering up the fear-based thoughts, be they around money, health, relationships, for example. The D is for declare. And that's where I'm declaring what I know to be true. Like, I know that the universe has my back. I know that God has my back. I also know that I don't know what anything is for. So if I'm having a rough time, I don't know what's on the other side of that. I don't know what the lesson is in that for me to learn. So I acknowledge that. I declare that to be true. And then the share is that I basically am asking that I can be led by a will greater than my own. And there's a prayer from A Course in Miracles that I say every day that says, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? And then I throw in, I'm willing to see. So it's like, use me as an instrument of peace. Use me as an embodiment of love today. That's the share part. So it's, any of these will work for you. And of course, you maybe find something that you prefer that resounds better with you. But again, it's this idea that I'm thankful that I have an opportunity to be in this experience another day. I know that there's something that can shift this perspective of the things that I find problematic. And I want to be a tool out in the world, So that's the prayer part. Feel free to shoot me any questions or DMs, any suggestions on resources. There's so many out there. And but that's the first part of my practice is to pray. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for Tuesday. Namaste. Good day, good morning, good Tuesday if you're watching this in order. This is day 2 of developing a spiritual practice. These are just some tools that I use that have helped me to navigate changes, to maintain some degree of sanity and some degree of connectedness. I think if you're watching this in real time, we're still very much in the corona pandemic and everything feels very uncertain. And it's been very helpful for me to have a practice that I sit down most days and do. I'm not a big morning person. I do my practice in the morning, but if I have to get up really early in the morning, I tend to do it later or not at all. So this shouldn't feel like a job for you, but it is to me an important thing that I do every day. So yesterday we talked about prayer. Today we're going to do breath work. This is a very easy part of your practice, or of my practice, that I can do anywhere. On those days where I feel like I'm pressed for time, which is so totally self-imposed, by the way, I'll find that I'll pray as soon as I get out of bed. Then I'll get in the shower, and maybe I'll do my breath work in the shower, or I might do it in the car. So I want to share a few techniques with you. One is an energizing breath work called Breath of Fire. also Kapalabhati breath. And it's a very energizing breath. It's good to do in the morning. And you can, if you want to kind of amp it up a little bit, I'll sometimes add the mantra of Sat Nam on top of it, which just basically is I am. So how it works is you take a deep breath in, and then you do sharp exhales through the nose while contracting your belly. So as you breathe out, it's kind of like a kind of sound. And as you do that, you pull your belly in. This video is going to be so embarrassing for me. But so one good way to do it in the beginning is to have one or both hands on your belly. So close your eyes, because there's not really much to see here. Take a deep breath in and out. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. So on that next round, we'll try 10 breaths of fire. So inhale as much as you can. Then through the nose. That was a softer version of it. You can certainly do it much more forcefully. But in the beginning, just kind of keep it a little, manageable. Maybe have a box of tissues nearby, especially if you're feeling very congested. It could be a somewhat unpleasant experience. Let's try it again. We'll go 15 this time. Start to feel a little buzz, right? I'm going to try it one more time. Let's see if we can go for 20 this time. It's a good way to wake you up minus the caffeine. That's a great breath to do in the morning. It's a good breath to do midday when you're sort of feeling like that little slump, or you just feel like you need to get a little bit of energy. The next breath technique is called the box breath. This is sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is not an energizing breath, but it is a very calming, de-stressing breath. And sometimes it's not an unfamiliar feeling for me to wake up anxious. So this is a good way to kind of calm your mind a bit. So the way it's going to work is, think of it like a box, right? So you're going to inhale, you're going to hold, you're going to exhale, you're going to hold again. The count of breath is really dependent on you. I tend to do a 4 or 5 breath, and sometimes if I'm doing this, I'll set my timer for 2 minutes, and I'll start at a breath count of 4, and then I'll increase it to 5, and then maybe to 6 or 7. But today we're just going to keep it at a 4 count. So inhale, exhale. So we're going to breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, keep going, in, pause, out, pause, again, inhale, retain the breath, exhale, retain the breath, one more time, in, hold, out, hold, big inhale, big exhale. Again, a great practice to do any time of the day, really. If you're feeling anxious or impatient, box breath, square breath, just a good little tool to have in your kit. Thank you for joining me today, and I hopefully will see you tomorrow. Namaste. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, whatever time you happen to be watching this. If you're watching this in order with us, today is Wednesday, third day of developing a spiritual practice. These are just things I do in the mornings to kind of root me into a higher vibration if I'm going out. Right now, there's not a lot of that going out. But it does also help with my housemate calls it doom scrolling, when you just kind of go through your phone, and I also call it disaster baiting. So Monday, we did prayer, and yesterday we did breath work. Now, probably the big chunk of my practice in the morning is reading. I have lots of spiritual texts that I'll read every day, but then I also like to read, recently over the last few years, I've gotten into reading poetry in the morning, like just one poem a day, because I love how people can string together words and ideas, and then it makes me feel like I can do it too. Two of my current favorites right now are Luis Cernuda, Forbidden Pleasures is the name of this anthology. It was given to me for Christmas by my housemate, one of my dear friends. So I'd like to share this poem with you. Some bodies are like flowers. Some bodies are like flowers, others like daggers, others like ribbons of water. But all of them, sooner or later, will be wildfires feeding on another body, turned by fire into a stone in a man. But a man gets shaken in all directions. He dreams of freedoms, competes with the wind, until one day the blaze consumes him, turning him back into a stone in no one's road. I, who am not a stone but a road, walked on by naked feet, am dying of love for them all. I give them my body to walk on, even though they're bound for an ambition or a cloud. Not one of them understanding that neither clouds nor ambitions will ever be worth one wholly surrendered love. I mean, come on. Look at that not inspire you, like in the morning. One of my others, she's probably one of my favorite poets, definitely in my top three, is Mary Oliver. Devotions is the name of this anthology. It's a great one, by the way. It's like I think it might be everything. The poem I want to share with you from her is called Why I Wake Early. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who make the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories, and into the windows of even the miserable and the crotchety. Best preacher there ever was, dear star, that just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness and kindness. I love that one. For a while I had it on when we were able to go out and about in the world, I had it on a Post-it on my dash, and it would just kind of be there to remind me of beauty, and beauty in words and beauty in the world. But if poetry's not your jam, then there's so many day books of like affirmations and just like inspirational quotes or stories that can also really sort of feed your soul before you kind of get out into the world. So that's day 3. That's the third part of my daily practice. I hope that you'll stick with me for the rest of the week, and I hope some of this is serving you. Namaste. Hi everyone, welcome to day 4 of developing a spiritual practice. I want to share with you some of the text that I read every day that kind of just inspire me and give me some faith. We've already done prayer and breath work, and yesterday I shared with you some poetry that I love to read every day. So today is the more sort of the heavier lifting, if you will, of what I like to read before I start my day. And it's basically 3 things that have, over the last couple of years, have kind of settled into my daily rotation, if you will. So it's, 1, the Bible, which might surprise some of you. I shared earlier that, I was raised in a very conservative church, and I shucked that away for many, many years. And I think maybe about 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to read the Bible again, but on my own, my own terms, and not with someone giving me their interpretation of it. So I did 1 year a plan where you would read through it for the whole year, and then sometimes I'll just buy like I'll follow people on Twitter and different things, and if they post a verse, I'll read that. But I just want to share with you today one of my favorite verses. It's from Hebrews. It's chapter 11, verse 1. Faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see. I love that because for me, it's like, I don't know what makes any of this work. Like, I don't know what makes any of this work. And it just kind of is like, yeah, just be faithful that, something's behind the steering wheel, or truck or whatever. Then the other one is, it took me a long time to get into this, but Mark Nepo, Book of Awakening. This is actually probably this is probably about my third or fourth copy, because I've either given them away or I've left them places, like I've left them on vacation before, so I've had to repeatedly buy it. But he's a great little day book of just some poetry and some good entries, and then a couple of exercises after each one. I want to share with you two of my favorites. One is entitled "The Bee Comes." The flower doesn't dream of the bee; it blossoms, and the bee comes. At times in my life, I've wanted love so badly that I have reimagined myself, reinvented who I am in an attempt to be more desirable or more deserving, only to discover again and again that it is the tending of my own soul that invites the natural process of love to begin. Sound familiar? I remember my very first tumble into love. I found such comfort there that, like Narcissus, I became lost in how everything other than my pain was reflected in her beauty. All the while, I was abdicating my own worth, empowering her as the key to my sense of joy. If I have learned anything through the years, it is that though we discover and experience joy with others, our capacity for joy is carried like a pod of nectar in our very own breast. I now believe that our deepest vocation is to root ourselves enough in this life that we can open our hearts to the light of experience and so bloom. For in blooming, we attract others. In being so thoroughly who we are, an inner fragrance is released that calls others to eat of our nectar, and we are loved by friends and partners alike. It seems the very job of being is to ready us for such love. By attending our own inner growth, we uncannily become exactly who we are, and like the tulip whose blossom petal is the exact shape of the bee, our self-actualization attracts a host of loving others more real than all our fantasies. In this way, the universe continues through the unexpected coming together of blossom souls. So if you can, give up the want of another and be who you are, and more often than not, love will come at the precise moment you are simply loving yourself. It's kind of like that saying that people will tell you sometimes that makes me crazy, like it always happens when you're not looking for it. That could be true, but I love this, that little sort of inspirational push there. And then the other one that I like is just a few pages over. It's called When Cut in Two. The Cut Worm Forgives the Plow by William Blake. So Mark Nepo writes, the worm is one of the only creatures that grows from being cut. Mysteriously, if you cut a worm in two, each cut half becomes whole and you have two worms. What is it in how the worm lives that allows it to grow from its pain? And how might we translate that to being human? Well, without looking too far, the worm is completely in touch with the earth. In fact, it eats earth. It lives in humus, the soil, inside and out. Perhaps the secret to growing from our wombs is to live close to the earth, to live with our hearts and minds and bellies always in touch, both inside and out, with that which is larger than we are. Perhaps when cut in two, it is a life of humility, of risking to be at one with the soil of our experience that allows us to heal something entirely new. Growing from our hurt parts. And then the last part that I read, and it's usually the last thing I read before I sit in meditation, is A Course in Miracles. I probably bought my first copy of A Course in Miracles, probably 20 years ago, or something like that. And it took me about 15 years to finally dive into it and commit to it. It is truly it's a process. Like you don't just read this like you would read like Harry Potter. You read this like in just nuggets, and you kind of marinate on those. And there's a workbook in it of 365 exercises that really help you to train how you see things and how you manage your thoughts, and it just sort of rewires you. I love it. I've done the workbook, I don't know, 10 times now probably. I'm going to read to you the introduction. You can certainly Google, the how it came to be and all of that. But the introduction I think is lovely. So it says, "This is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. The course therefore can be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." And then from the workbook, my favorite lesson is lesson 21, and it is just titled, "I am determined to see things differently." And I try to use that throughout the day when I find myself in great turmoil or stress, of where I can see this differently. I could choose a different perspective to view this from. And that usually helps with me anyway. So that's the meaty part of my practice. I hope you'll stay with me one more day and see the last part of my practice. Have a great day, and a great day. Take care of yourself and each other, and be kind. Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 5, our last day of developing a spiritual practice. This may be the hardest one for a lot of people. It certainly was for me. And the last part of my practice is meditation. It took me a long time to just be still, to get still and to stop talking like that. But it doesn't have to be a challenging experience. There are so many techniques and methods of meditation out there that, it's kind of like buying a toothbrush. You know how there are so many options of toothbrushes now. And sometimes it takes you a while to find the one that's like, this is the one. It can be like that with meditation. I tend to start my meditation either with just simple breath work, which is what I'll demonstrate for you today. Sometimes it'll be a practice called noting what I'm thinking, noting what I'm feeling. But I always also try to do a bit of the extension of loving kindness in my meditation practice. I have a couple of videos on the channel that will lead you through that as well. And there's certainly many more qualified people than I that you could probably find online as well. But to begin a meditation practice, I think it's just getting used to sitting and being quiet. I remember years ago when I used to work in customer service. This actually wasn't that long ago. This was maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. I was working at a front desk, and someone came in and they were asking me a question, and they just kept talking like there was never a space where I could answer the question. And in my head, I was like, well, if you would shut up, I would answer the question. And then I had this moment of like an aha where the universe was kind of like, yeah, that's great advice. Maybe you should follow that sometimes when you're working out your stuff. So then I got a lot better at my meditation practice. So what we're going to do today is just watch the breath, just for a few minutes, nothing really. And I think, if it's a practice that scares you, start small. Start just with this breath practice. Maybe set the timer on your phone for 3 minutes. Here, we'll actually go ahead and do that. Set your timer for 3 minutes. That's nothing in your day. And find you a comfortable posture. Shrug your shoulders a couple of times, maybe side to side with the head. If you're sitting on the floor cross-legged and the posture feels unsupported, maybe sit up against a wall or your bed. If you're sitting in a chair, let your feet be firmly planted on the floor. I like to have my hands in my lap, either my fingertips just kind of touching like that, or stacking my palms, or my fingers in my palms like that. Take a deep breath in. Open the mouth, exhale. Take a deep breath in. Open the mouth, exhale. You're not trying to develop a rhythm of breath. You're sitting in your natural rhythm of breath. We're not trying to make it deeper. We're not trying to make it louder. We're not trying to make it happen more often. You're just breathing. Maybe you pick one of the physical sensations that you feel as you breathe in. Maybe the feeling of the breath as it enters your nostrils. Maybe the rise of your chest. Maybe the fall on the exhale. And if your mind starts to wander or you get distracted, which is perfectly normal, just softly say to yourself, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. You could also just say, I'm breathing. And if there's a thought that keeps coming up, just say, not the breath, and bring your attention back to breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, I'm breathing out. And take a deep breath in and a big exhale out. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. See, very not scary. I used to have a teacher that would say, if you can breathe, you can meditate. And then I had another teacher recently that would say, if you can worry, you can meditate. Because you kind of already are if you're worrying. So those are the components of, for me, a morning spiritual practice. Prayer, breath work, reading something inspirational, reading something a little meatier, and then some meditation. And again, this is a great time to begin a practice. It doesn't have to consume your whole day. I can typically do my practice in 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes typically is what I'll do. And sometimes I'm also able to just kind of break it up in pieces. You know, I'm not a morning person. So in the morning, I might just pray and meditate and then do my reading later in the day. So it's all about you finding a rhythm that works for you and finding the tools that work for you as well. And even finding the material that works for you. But I think, again, it's just a great way to kind of disengage the ego, to kind of give yourself up to a higher power rather than letting our fear and worry just kind of drive the day. So I hope this has been helpful. As always, please feel free to reach out, DM me on social media or email me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Namaste.